Hello and welcome everyone to episode 127 of DoubleDM Podcast, your place to get TTRPG advice and inspiration. I am as always your host Emil. I am here with my co-host Niels. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I've fought off my sickness and I can go about my day as normal now. Had an amazing TTRPG session and can't wait to play Baldur's Gate. I can't wait. The things that I've played in early access and just before this recording is just, it's great.
Yeah, and the best thing is, right, they changed the beginning from the early access.
Yes, they did.
So even those that have played the early access don't know what's happening.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I decided, right, I said to myself, I'm not going to play the early access because I don't want to get spoiled at all. I want to go into this completely blind as soon as the game is out. And now I'm kind of sad that I didn't play the early access because that would have just been bonus content.
Yeah, and really great thing, they listened to the feedback they got from the early access. They changed a lot regarding that. And yeah, overall, just listen to the community when making a game, when they wanted the early access exactly for that reason. Yeah. So that's a big plus. Yeah. Hell yeah. And I mean, I've played Larian Studio games before, like Divinity and stuff, and those were already amazing. And yeah, I just believe that Baldur's Gate 3 will be not exactly like Divinity 2, but in the same realm of greatness, if not above that.
Looking just at stats, because right, I wanted to get into Baldur's Gate as blind as I could. I didn't watch any of the trailers. I didn't watch any of the promo things. I didn't watch anything really besides like the first thing that they announced in like 2020 when they announced the early access. And I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, I know already I'm going to play this. I'm going to consume as little as I can about this game. Okay, but yeah, Baldur's Gate obviously isn't the hype. Yesterday, 5 p.m. German time, was the point where I said, okay, now's the time. Nothing else will happen until I have to record with Niels on Friday at 12:30. Nothing else will keep me from Baldur's Gate. And that is basically what happened. I didn't play the whole night through like I had originally planned. Okay. Mostly because I still have to work after we record this. I have a quick meeting with work that I have to attend because it's a presentation of mine. But if that wouldn't have happened, I literally would have gone to sleep after this recording, having already played 17 hours of Baldur's Gate or something.
Yeah, but remember, sleep is important.
Yeah, I would have gone to sleep at some point. Yeah. But I made the arrangements to be able to stay up the whole night and play Baldur's Gate 3. Obviously, we're in the hype, but there's quick questions because you've already started playing. What character did you make?
I made a bard character first, because that is the closest I got to one of my TTRPG or D&D characters. And of course,
everyone around me is doing their D&D. Their favorite D&D characters. I mean, yeah, obviously,
you, right?
I just didn't. Mostly because I don't play D&D as a player most of the time. And when I do, I pick so obscure things that are not in Baldur's Gate 3 yet.
Yeah.
But okay, you made a bard.
Yes.
Interesting. Nice.
Yeah, it's the closest thing I have to the custom class that I play with this character. I made with my GM a custom class, basically an investigator, kind of Sherlock Holmes-y kind of deal, but without the rogue sneaky shit. More of a supportive, hey, these are the weaknesses kind of character.
Yeah.
And a bard is the closest that I was able to get in Baldur's Gate. But I am planning on building a plethora of different characters.
I am planning on so many different playthroughs of Baldur's Gate 3.
Hell yeah.
I mean, even the thing is, no one, I think, will be able to see every ending Baldur's Gate 3 has, because it has 17,000 different endings.
Yeah, I doubt that. Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I'm going to assume that this is basically just an exaggeration by the numbers that is being done. Like, there are 17,000 different endings, but I think ending 1,125 is not going to be that different from ending 1,126. Like, right, there's going to be nuanced. One different choice with one different companion or something, and the ending is officially it's different, but right, at the end, it still looks the same. But I still think that there's so much content in this game. And I think 9 hours I've played so far, I am so overwhelmed but happy with everything I'm seeing. It's so great. It's so much fun.
And I gotta say, I played the early access for a little over, I think, 30 or 40 hours, something along those lines. And I'm really excited to see how different the real or the complete game is, or in what ways it is different. I've never played through the whole early access, actually, because I took my time and explored the shit out of this area. I was still basically in the Druid's Grove, or around the area of the Druid's Grove.
Yeah, after the Nautiloid crash site.
Yeah, but the bigger area of everything in that regard. And I really explored everything there is to be explored, or try to, and took my time to talk with nearly everyone I could, just to see how far this early access goes and what can be improved or what cannot be improved because it's already great, or whatever the fuck, because I wanted to help out. But it was more than 40 hours, so it was big.
Oh my god. If it's more than like the thing is, Divinity Original Sin 2 has a standard runtime of like 90 hours, I think. I don't even want to know how many hours I'm gonna spend in Baldur's Gate, because Divinity Original Sin 2 I've played for 300 hours or so.
Yeah, it's an amazing.
And I'm just thinking that Baldur's Gate 3 is gonna be even bigger than that, and it's gonna take even more time of me, because is a clear improvement on Divinity. Even though I have to say, so far, I am not liking the companion characters as much as I did those in Divinity Original Sin 2.
Yeah.
Maybe because those were my favorite companion characters ever in a video game.
Then I gotta ask, which one was your favorite companion in Divinity Original Sin 2?
There's one clear answer for me on who's my favorite of all time, because Lose is my favorite NPC of all time in any video game ever. Period.
I can see that. I can see that.
However, Sibyl and the Red Prince, however, have so compelling storylines. All of them have. Yeah. I really enjoy it. But okay, aside from that, you had TTRPG sessions as well this week.
I had one.
Tell me about those.
Tuesday, which was pretty amazing. Played a street food market. It was just talking and having fun, eating weird food that isn't normally available in this area. Like my players, and I was just like, yeah, every type of food that you want is kind of available here, because why the fuck not, right? And then my players just got a taco kit. One just purchased a taco kit to sit on a rooftop and watch the fireworks. The other person just got a schnitzel, because why the fuck not, right?
I'm so sorry. I have to say it.
Go ahead.
My brain literally went to the place of taco, a kit that is a taco.
Oh, God.
Not a kit for tacos, but a kit that is a taco.
Oh, God, no.
And I was
no.
That checks out in TTRPG. That checks out.
Fair.
Speak with food.
No, but it was a lot of fun. And one of my I introduced a kind of shady place where you could basically buy feats for the price of a curse.
Ooh.
For a random curse. You don't know what you get. And one of my players just, feats? Count me in. And got himself the Drow High Magic feat. For the little price of the curse, you have to kill one humanoid per week. That's just a little price, right?
That's hard. That's disgusting.
Yeah, it is. But I prepared a curse table. They rolled on it, and it got on this and the D100 just came up on this curse. So,
have to deal with it now.
Exactly.
Have to deal with it now.
And yeah, the person or the creature handing out these curses was basically a devil in disguise.
Obviously.
It had to be, right?
It always has to be a devil in disguise.
Another player of mine also got the lucky feat for a way more interesting and more roleplay heavy curse. I imagine, because every time they want to try a divination spell on one of their or want to try a divination spell, and one specific creature from their backstory is in the area is in this area where the creature that they normally would target is. The divination spell focuses on that specific creature. That could be interesting for their backstory. We'll try to explore in the sessions to come.
Interesting. I like the idea of this trade-off, right? Get a feat, and you are allowed to choose, right? That's the fun thing, right? You're allowed to choose the benefits, but the detriments, Well, they could either be something that you are just going to shrug off as an inconvenience, having been lucky, or, well, you have to do something that maybe goes against your moral code as a character, that completely invalidates how you wanted to approach something, or maybe even a curse that potentially could make your feat not so useful anymore. That's an interesting trade-off, and it really fits for the devil, right? He just says, I have a feat for you, and there's a price attached.
Yeah.
Will you take it?
The benefits that you will receive will be benefits. There is a caveat for that. The feat or the bonus is still the bonus. That's untouched. But yeah, and obviously removing such a curse given to you by a devil isn't as easy as it might seem, especially if they don't have any sort of holy person in the party. So yeah, they now have to kind of deal with their curses, and other things, just winning a drinking competition or smashing something so fast or so heavy into bits that no one else would ever be able to or wasn't able to in this competition to do that, and winning a flower crown. Just fun little shenanigans, roleplay, and character bonding. So yeah, fun times. But that's basically my TTRPG session, where a lot happened without really a lot happening. So yeah, but what about you? Did you have any TTRPG sessions?
I didn't have anything to share other than Baldur's Gate. Yeah, no, the week was filled with nothing, which was good because I needed to take a little bit of a break, a little bit of relaxation. But next week is going to look very promising TTRPG-wise.
Perfect.
Because I have 3 sessions next week.
Alrighty.
Tuesday, Tyranny of Dragons, where my players are currently flying on a silver dragon's back to a location that is still unknown to them. On Thursday, we have finally, hopefully, we're back at the Dark Eye and infiltrating somewhat of a cultistic temple.
Okay.
Trying our best not to be found and actually doing a stealth mission for once. At least
Congrats.
I think so.
Trying to be stealthy if stealth is optional. Congratulations to you.
We assume that there are hostages inside that we just cannot doom by barging in and maybe endangering them. At least I hope that's what the rest thinks as well. And we also have something on Sunday.
We have.
So yeah. And we also have a session and we might also have a session on Friday.
Yeah.
So 4 sessions of TTRPGs next week for me. So that's good. And I'm looking forward to every single one of them.
Hell yeah.
And with that, I would say we should jump into our episode for the day so that we don't swoon further over Baldur's Gate. This time we're talking about min-maxing and why you should stop saying min-maxing is a bad thing in TTRPGs. See you after a midroll. Hey listener, how are you enjoying the show so far? Tell us about it in whatever way you see fit. Go to our social media pages and add us or DM us about your favorite episode of the show. We would love to hear from you on what impact our show might have had on your home games. Or you could review us on your podcast app of choice and leave us a nice message with a 5-star review. And if you want to go above and beyond, bring a friend into the fold. Tell them about our show and refer us to them so they can get a piece of the pie as well. Thank you for listening to DoubleDM and joining us on this incredible journey. So Niels, recently I've, as always, part of the internet, having to take part in discourse or at least having it projected at me against my will. And among the standardized topics that we've had, like dice fudging and safety tools, which I don't need to see that discourse, it's boring as fuck because it always starts the same way. One person says, I think that you as a dungeon master have the need to protect your players from crits, or I think that the best story is being told when you ignore the dice and say whatever happens anyway. And the second part is, I haven't used safety tools because me and my group are mature, blah, 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 bullshit. It always starts the same way. Yep. There's another discourse that always starts the same way. But this is a discourse that I don't necessarily feel that tired of, because it's not that it doesn't come up often, because it probably comes up more often than the other two. But the other two, when they come up, they're the only thing a community talks about for days.
Yeah.
When this comes up, it's more or less a topic that has been already completely solved by the community. And also, it's not that big of a deal or deal breaker for people for saying this person is right, this person is wrong. And it's the discourse of min-maxing. And not necessarily min-maxing, but that min-maxing is a bad practice.
Okay.
Now, this is normally how the discourse starts. Some person, oftentimes, and I'm going to say it from my view of Twitter, a person that has not been long part of the specified Twitter community of TTRPG discussions, right? They might have been playing TTRPGs for 5-6 years, but they haven't been that accustomed or that ingrained in the online TTRPG discourse Twitter culture that I've been part of for years. So again, my point of view of this topic is completely different from what this person comes, because they come to Twitter and say, hey, one of my players has created a totally OP character and I find that bad because it hinders role play for the others, because this character is totally overpowered and wants to kill everything and the rest only wants to play their random weird little dudes that run around laughing and playing memes and stuff like that, right? And then discourse breaks loose because the algorithm picks that tweet up, pushes it out to everyone part of that discussion culture, and right in that discussion culture everyone wants to talk about it. And that's not bad, but it also means that this one person that has just made an off tweet becomes the center of discourse, or their tweet becomes the center of discourse. Now, this person isn't necessarily wrong for their experience or their opinion on this, but I think that the discourse around min-maxing being bad is just wrong.
Yeah. And I think the discourse is constantly there, but sometimes it just spikes through some
100%
tweet or whatever. But especially for homebrew magic items, or if someone says one way they do things, or how they build their character, or what is allowed in their games and what is not, and blah, blah, blah. The comment section, there's always some people talking about this, but at some point they usually just spikes through a tweet or something like that. But yeah, that's why we're not that tired of, because it's always kind of there, but never for a prolonged period of time that in our faces.
I wouldn't say that. Personally, I've seen the min-maxing is bad opinion a lot of times on Twitter, and then a lot of retaliation to that, a lot of counter arguments and stuff. At some point, it just gets tiring to see the same arguments made over and over and over again. Because I've already had that argument. I don't need to do it again. Yeah. Please spare me of it.
But let's have that argument right now a bit. What is your view on min-maxing?
Right, that's the thing. I want to talk about it because I don't know if I have something new to say to the discussion that has been said in the wider range of the whole discussion internet around TTRPGs, because I think I don't. Mainly because I don't think that I am that original. Sure, in the 130 episodes of DoubleDM we did, I probably had said a few things that no one has said before in that constellation of stuff, in that context. But generally, everything we've said before, someone else has said as well. But right, it always helps to also just put out your opinion. And that's why I don't think that discourse itself is bad. I just get tired of seeing the same argument every couple months, not seeing any kind of moving in any direction on a grander scale. It's always the same with someone saying, this, and I'm like, yeah, I've seen that exact same tweet 3 times already. I don't give a fuck. But okay, back to min-maxing. Min-maxing. Yeah, my opinion on min-maxing is, and this is a hot take, everyone does it.
Yeah.
At least in most games, especially games like D&D, Pathfinder, games that are very focused on their statistics, on the numbers in the system. We could say combat systems.
Yeah.
And I think everyone does it. And some people might disagree because, my characters are not built optimally. Well, to that, instantly, min-maxing and optimal characters, first of all, are two different things. Say the thing that you mean. When you say my characters are not built optimally, then say that you don't like players creating optimal characters. But also that is, in my opinion, something that everyone does. Because both, while people seem to mean the same thing, the words meaning different things, for me, the thing still means the same thing in TT. Doesn't matter. My opinion on min-maxing is everyone does it. I think that everyone builds their characters with a purpose in mind.
Yeah.
And you build that character to maximize that purpose. Minimizing other factors in the process.
Yeah.
Because so everyone min-maxes. But it only is, but a lot of people seem to only care when people maximize combat effectiveness in D&D. And to those people, I ask, why is that the only instance you care? Probably because that person wants to be good in combat and you don't value combat as much as them. That is not a problem on the player part. That is not a problem on you as a GM part or you as a fellow player part. That is a problem of miscommunication in session 0 or whenever about what this game is about that you're playing.
Exactly.
If one of your players wants to have combat, so their min-maxed combat barbarian can deal a lot of damage, they should have said so. And same if you as the GM want to create a specific campaign that doesn't focus a lot on combat, or you're not that big of a combat GM and your combats are rather simple, meaning that this character that has an optimal combat barbarian build probably destroys the combats pretty quickly because they're so strong. That is something that you should have also kind of at least communicated in some way. That is not a problem because this player is playing the game wrong. Because
exactly.
I've seen people say that min-maxers are destroying my fun of the game. No, they're not. Oh, well, they might be. But that is not because they want to. That is because this min-maxing is where their fun of the game lies. You should have just made sure with them to talk about this beforehand to find a compromise. So your fun doesn't get destroyed while they can keep their fun.
Yeah. And I think I totally agree with the everyone min-maxes to some degree, because you build a character, like you said, with a purpose in mind. That purpose, I think, for a player's shifts multiple times over their journey as a player, at least in my experience.
It doesn't have to, but it mostly will.
Exactly, because the first characters that I have built were mostly combat focused because I didn't know how to build stuff not for combat or whatever, right? And over the course of my player journey, I personally found out for me that building a combat maxed character isn't as much fun for me personally. So over the course of my journey as a player, I found out, hey, maxing my ability to bake stuff, for example, can be more fun for me. But it's still a way of min-maxing in a sense. So I don't think...
There's a problem for me with that. I'm sorry that I'm interrupting you. Right, you said over the course of my player journey, I started building characters specified for combat because that was the easiest, right? Because the games that you've played focused on combat. But now when you create a D&D character, it is very hard to create a D&D character that is not fit for combat. It is not impossible because I did it. And I'm going to say it the way it is. A character specifically built for not doing combat is not fun in D&D. Yeah. Now, people might disagree with me and say, I have a lot of characters not built for combat, and it's very much fun because our sessions are, we have 3 sessions after another where we only sit around the campfire and talk. First of all, to that argument, the sitting around the campfire and talking, I don't need a character sheet for that. I will do that the same with a character built perfectly for combat and not for combat. That is not a valid argument for why your characters that are not built for combat work better. Second of all, D&D is purely combat. Please stop saying that D&D is not built for combat. It is.
Yeah.
And every character you build in it has features ingrained in them that are only combat focused or that are very much heavily focused on combat. Everything that basically has a timer attached to it, everything that has damage attached to it, everything that has an attack roll or saving throw or whatever attached to it. It is made, at least in some shape or form, for combat. And again, I've built a character that didn't have any single combat spells. I've built a wizard, a divination wizard that didn't have combat spells. No cantrips, no spells till 5th level that dealt any damage. In combat, this character was useless. Now, I told my GM beforehand that I'm going to do this. That is an importance when doing that in a game that drives on combat. you need to talk about that. And I did, and he said, yeah, okay. And I said, do not have to make sure that you have exceptions for me. If it comes to combat, I will have to find a thing to do. Totally fine. That is then my responsibility. I cannot tell my GM, I have built a character that is not made for combat and you put combat in front of us. What is this from you? Why did you do this? This was my decision. I have to deal with the consequences. But I'm going to say it. It was not fun to play that character. At least not in a long run. For the 1-2 sessions before he got a few combat spells, it was, this character is made a lot for investigation. He uses most of his divination spells to find stuff and solve crimes, but no combat. So to say what I wanted to say with that is just stop with the argument that your characters are not built for combat in combat games, because Niels said, max out my ability to bake. And that is a fun character concept. But I would say that even though Niels maxed out his ability to bake in a D&D character, I don't know what class you used for that, be it a fighter, an artificer, a druid, I don't give a fuck.
D&D. Yeah. It was a different system, but yeah.
But as we're on D&D, even if you build a baker in D&D, I can assure you that still the class that they have is going to give them things to do in combat.
Yeah.
So I don't want to put it too mean, but stop your obsession with hating characters that are good, that are built for what the system mostly does.
Exactly, yeah. I totally agree.
And if you really don't want combat, then make sure that you don't have combat. Be that. And this is the better advice than anything else. Play a different system that does not focus on combat. Because then you can build a character that is not optimally built for combat.
Yeah, that's actually what I did with the baker.
Yeah.
I sadly never got to play that baker because I had to GM that. But nevertheless, I wanted to build that baker because, hey, why the fuck not, right? In a zombie apocalypse slapstick comedy system, let's build a fucking baker.
Yeah.
Why not?
Why not?
And then there are some things regarding what you were before the zombie apocalypse that give you some special bonuses for certain skills and whatever. And there is no purely focus on combat, but rather surviving, combat, making fun of situations, and creating the best life possible in that instance. So there was this whole section about baking, cooking, starting fires, and I am more focused on the social and crafty thingamajigs rather than I know how to use a fucking gun, because I, as a former baker, don't. But now that the world's gone to shit, I will be the best baker the fucking world has ever seen.
Yeah.
So,
sure.
If you don't want combat to be your focus of your character, pick a different system that allows you to do exactly that.
I've been experimenting with less combat-focused D&D characters, and personal experience tells me, even when I try to build a character that is less focused on combat and more on exploration or the social aspect of D&D, there is gonna be enough combat abilities to be useful in combat.
Exactly.
When I see such a discord that people hate min-maxed characters because they're too strong in combat and overshadow everything and destroy every encounter easily, I think to myself, well, what do the other characters, for example, look like in that instance? Because they also have combat abilities. Why don't they work as well? Then you can go into the question of why, because that is what I should be asking myself. Why is this one character stronger than all the others? Instead of directing any sort of malice, rage, disappointment, anger, whatever you want to call it, towards that character, and even worse, the player of that character.
Yeah.
Because they've built a character by the rules of the game that you gave them. If you as the GM set the rules of your game and say, these are my homebrew rules, these are the rules for character creation, and one of your players takes that and creates a legit character, you cannot be salty about it.
And I mean, there are these three pillars in D&D: exploration, social, and combat.
Yeah.
For example, if you have three characters in your group, each character min-maxed one of these pillars, for example. One is a combat god. You cannot touch them. The other one never loses their fucking way and can find anything that they want. The other one can talk your group out of every situation or into every situation. Yeah, everyone min-max to a certain degree. Why would you be mad about this? Because then you just shift the spotlight to whoever has this or should have the spotlight because of the situation they are currently in. Yeah. If they are lost in a magical forest maze thingamajig, then the explorer character will shine, but the combat character will just be there following this dude. and the other way around. It's just, I think, just go with it and shift the spotlight.
I can totally tell you why there is frustration, especially with the combat characters here.
Go ahead.
We all know that the 3 pillars of D&D are fucking useless because there's only one pillar, and that's combat. And this sounds like a bad thing. And it kind of is a bad thing because D&D promises 3 pillars and then has like an 80-10-10% split between combat, social, and exploration. And that is putting it lightly because there are very few social rules in D&D, and the exploration rules in D&D are just plain shit.
Yeah.
You don't want to use them. And that is where that frustration probably comes from. Because when you have characters that are focused on one of these 3 pillars, min-max to being the combat god, an exploration god, and a social god, the combat pillar is just by design of the game that you're playing, outshining the other 2. It has nothing to do with the player character, because all 3 player characters are min-max the hypothetical same way. It's just that that combat character more often comes to shine. And this is not a critique on you as a dungeon master if you ever thought to yourself, oh shit, one of my characters has an optimal character and is completely overpowering the others. It is not, because I've been at that same point. I've asked the question myself, and don't worry, I definitely get what you're feeling. I just want you to understand that you shouldn't look for fault with the player that created the character.
Exactly.
Because that is not healthy. It is not a healthy attitude to blame your players for something, except when they're actually the arsehole.
Exactly. That was something that I would interject with is, but if you talked about this in session 0 and made clear what everyone at the table wanted and wanted to build and whatever, but one player just said, yeah, okay, I agree, but I built this anyway, and then proceeds to be the fucking asshole and do it,
yeah,
that's a different point.
Yeah, that's a different point. And then you're definitely allowed to be mad at them and do what you think is right, throwing them out of the group, for example.
Exactly. But not because they are min-maxing, but because they are an asshole.
Especially because they're an asshole about it, right? A min-maxed character is, in my opinion, actually more fun to play than a non-min-maxed character. And now, the thing is, right, that's why I think the min-maxing discourse is so silly as well, because people say, there's this min-maxed character in my group, and they're untouchable. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, so you've understood like half of what you just said. And this is, again, not an attack against the people that say it, because I've said it before myself. But where's the min aspect of that min-maxing? Because you said they're untouchable. So, okay, let's look at a hypothetical random character. Let's take a barbarian. They have a +5 to strength, or they have 20 in strength, +5 modifier. They have a very high con and a very high dex. Good. Okay, they're min-maxed. They have very high combat stats. They have an AC of 21. They are nearly unhittable. They have a lot of HP because their con is so high, and they have a lot of heavy damage to be dealt because they wield a great axe with a +5 to strength at level 4. Why is that character untouchable? Because they're min-maxed, you say. Where is the min aspect? Do they have a very low intelligence, low wisdom, low charisma? That is the minimum aspect of their character. Why would you, in a game system like D&D, where every class is more or less told, these 2 are your, or this one or these 2 are your primary stats, strength and con, dexterity and wisdom, intelligence and wisdom, or just plain charisma, or charisma and strength for the paladin. Why would you hate a player when they're being explicitly told these are your main stats for maxing them out?
Exactly.
Like, who cares? That's literally what the game asks of them, more or less. And then they also have to put smaller little values into the other stats. So a paladin, for example, in my games, has a +5 to strength and a +3 to charisma right now. And they're going to increase that charisma going forward in the game. They have a -2 to dexterity.
Sounds like a insert fireball joke.
Why is that character so OP to you? And now, this is where I think something else comes in, and that is, right, this perceived thing that comes in, especially when you have dice involved. Niels knows who I'm talking about. I'm not necessarily gonna name names, but we have a friend that rolls really, really fucking well most of the time. But that is not his fault. If he rolls well, then he rolls well. And there's also enough times where he doesn't roll well. But for example, when he rolls up a character and does 46 drop blows, because my group likes to roll dice, he rolls on average like 5 to 6 points better than the rest of the group on average. That is, I'm gonna say it, clearly unfair for the rest of the group, because they're gonna be at average like 1 or 2 or even 3 bonuses of modifiers behind this character. And then, yeah, that character could be counted as overpowering the others. That has nothing to do with this player's ability to put their stats where they're supposed to be.
Exactly.
This player has luck. That has nothing to do with them min-maxing. They have luck. So how do we eliminate that component? So all characters theoretically have the same luckness applied to them by the player.
That's something, one thing that you did in one of our campaigns that I really loved with stat rolling is that every run, we were 3 players.
3 players.
Everyone rolled 2 times 46 and dropped the lowest. And these 6 stats that we then have, everyone gets them. We basically created our own array that we then use to, because we all like to roll dice, because that's why we fucking play TTRPGs that involve dice, right?
Yeah.
Because dice rolling is amazing. Click like math noises. Amazing. But then no one had an unfair advantage or disadvantage because everyone still got the same stats.
Yeah.
And then we decided where we wanted to put them. But we all got the same thing, but with the added benefit of rolling fucking dice and seeing what will happen.
And with that, you eliminate the luck factor from character creation. Now, we could talk about that luck might be a critical factor that should be part of character creation, which is something very fun to talk about that I have to think about myself. But
I mean, is it completely negating luck?
When you're talking about min-maxing and one character overpowering the others, with this, you eliminated part of the problem already because everyone has the same starting conditions. It is now up to them what they do with that.
Exactly.
And if one of the players, for example, plays a barbarian and there are 2 rolls that are 16 and 18, and they say, okay, an 18 in strength, 16 in con is where my stats go. And another character plays paladin and says, yeah, but I put the 18 in constitution and the 16 in wisdom and only put the 14 in strength and the 14 in charisma. That is a personal decision. And yeah, one of the players, you could say, was optimizing their character to do what they're supposed to do on the game level. My barbarian is supposed to hit strong and take a lot of damage. So I maximize those 2 abilities. Another says, yeah, I understand what my class is supposed to do, be charismatic and strong, but I want my character to be an old war veteran that has seen a lot of fighting, so I put it in wisdom and constitution. It's fun. And now, where, like, you could argue that one of the characters is better than the other, but I wouldn't know which. On a game level, when you ask an AI, as that is currently something everyone wants to talk about, when you ask a computer which of these 2 characters is gonna be better, the computer's gonna spit out the barbarian every single time. Because mathematically, yeah, they're better. They deal more damage, they take more damage, perfect. But why does it make the paladin less of a cool character, of a better character?
Yeah, I have something along those lines in one of my groups where I'm a player. I built a character that is mostly focused on investigating and archaeology and stuff like that, knowing shit. And in a 1v1 physical confrontation, they would probably just be wiped. They don't have a lot of HP. They don't have a high armor class. They do not have strength at all with a score of 4. They just don't. They can't even lift a fucking mug. But this character can support in a group. They can point out weaknesses and therefore bettering the others and therefore contributing to that. So in a physical confrontation, my character is dog shit in a 1v1 situation. But in a many versus many situation, I can shine because I can say, hey, look at this gap in the armor. Try and not hit the armor, but hit the gap, for example. Because especially in an adventuring party in TTRPGs, most of the time it is not we look at one character individually, but as at the adventuring party as a whole, how they function together. And then having a really wise old war veteran in a combat where knowing shit is important because of
knowing is half the battle.
Exactly, because they moved their cavalry to the left side. Okay, so we now know where the fuck they're coming from, and I can communicate that with my other players and whatever, right?
Yeah.
It's not the barbarian can deal more damage, but who enables the barbarian to deal the most damage?
For example, yeah. The min-maxing thing also comes from a place of saying this versus this. And this is something that we haven't necessarily said explicitly yet. Whenever I see the discourse, whenever I see the arguments made, there was some kind of underlying tone with it. And I'm not saying that everyone that says it thinks like this. But I've seen it being said like this. Min-maxing is destroying roleplay. Or that min-maxing is opposed to roleplaying.
Okay.
Because for some people, min-maxing equates to combat, right? As with D&D, when you min-max a character, they're optimized for combat. We can just accept that as a fact. Because the character is made optimally for the game you're playing, and that is D&D, and that means combat. Perfect. Simple chain of causality. And some people think that opposes roleplay. Now, I want to say something that might not be the experience for everyone. But I firmly believe that the best roleplay I've ever gotten from players is from players that explicitly only min-max.
Yeah, I can see that.
I also have to say, I think most of my players would be considered heavy min-maxers by a lot of people. They create their characters on a mathematical value level of this is going to be the most effective stat-wise. If anyone ever thinks that me just saying that means that my group doesn't roleplay or isn't good at roleplay, in my opinion, is so far wrong that they cannot see the right side anymore.
Yeah.
They are so far off from the truth.
I mean, I have played with your group a couple of times.
Yeah.
Not as much, but I've played with them. And yeah, every character was or could be considered OP in a sense.
I'm gonna say it. You're part of that group. You're also a person that I think min-maxes their characters on a mathematical value level a lot. But that doesn't mean that you don't roleplay or that your roleplay is any less worth than that of people that don't min-max in quotation marks.
I sure hope so.
I at least don't see where that is opposing to one another.
Exactly.
Like, I get that when people create suboptimal characters, that is mostly a decision based on, I want this to be roleplay. I want the stats to reflect what I want to roleplay. My character isn't the best paladin out there, but they're a war veteran. They know a lot of stuff. They have seen a lot of stuff, and they can take a hit because they've been in battle for so long. And that's why I make the stats reflect what I want to roleplay. Why do we think that the other way around, making your stats and your roleplay reflecting those stats, is either any less valuable or, second, not possible at all? Because I think to both things I can say that's not true. It cannot be. Because the two things are very much heavily ingrained with each other. They're connected. Stats reflect roleplay and roleplay reflects stats. But they are not dependent on each other.
Exactly.
One does not dictate the other. They combine each other to create a character. We've had an episode on that. An episode on what is on your character sheet and what is beyond your character sheet and how it interacts with each other. The thing about it is that none of the two has any stronger value than the other. If one thing would be more valuable than the other, that would not be a fun TTRPG to enjoy for me.
I mean, because you can build two characters with mathematically the same shit. Same values for attributes, same skills, same features, whatever. But just by the player who plays that character, playing them differently with different values, a different attitude or whatever, just makes them a complete different character, even though the stats may be the exact same. Or the other way around, it also works. You can play them with the same attitude, the same morals, the same values and stuff, but have completely different stats, which then in turn make them a different character again.
Yeah.
These are just two parts on a scale that you just have, or on a basically, on a two sides of a sheet of paper that cannot really exist without each other, but don't necessarily influence each other, because the stats don't influence the way how you play your character, but they can if you wanted to, or the other way around. It's a topic that gets bloated, I think, a lot of times. This discussion gets bloated as shit because
I think one fun thing about this discussion is it comes from people that have some kind of opposition against combat-focused characters, right? At least most of the time.
Yeah.
The point of min-maxing destroys good roleplay comes from a place of min-maxing is made for combat and combat is opposed to roleplay, at least to some degree. I'm not saying that it's exactly the same thing, but I'm saying that somehow is connected. And it's fun when you have these people that complain about it, about min-maxing and optimized characters and how they're destroying combat. Doesn't that mean that you as a GM or you as a player care deeply about combat? Because why would you care so much if it's not roleplay? if it's not important to you. Because roleplay is more important than combat to you. At least that's what you say. And that's why the min-max character is destroying combat. But that also then means combat is important to you, at least to some degree. And then if combat is that important to you, that you care for another player that has min-maxed the character and destroying your enjoyment of combat. Now, if we take this to the extreme and one player is actually destroying the combat experience, this advice does not hold. But generally, why don't you do the same? Why don't you create a character that is good for combat? I mean, I've just told you that you can create a very good character concept and have a good combat character without ever losing anything on either side. So why don't you create a good character for combat if combat matters that much to you? I don't want to say it like this, but in gamer terms, it's get good.
Yeah.
If combat really matters to you that much that you complain about other people being OP in combat, then do the fucking same thing. Create a character that is just as OP as the other character. And then that character won't seem OP anymore because you're at the same power level now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, why? The crux of the discussion doesn't lie with that one thing is destroying the experience of the other. The crux lies more that people don't equate, or that people think that there's a very clear disconnect between an optimized character and good roleplay. At least that's where the discussion often stems from, and I think that's just plainly wrong.
Yeah.
And I can put more arguments into why I think that's wrong. I'm not saying that the person that feels like, right, your feelings might be still valid. You might still be feeling like combat is being destroyed by this one character that is just overpowered. Because I have that in my groups. I have a character that is very strong, that deals a lot of fucking damage and is very tanky. And another character sits next to them and says, oftentimes, I just cannot deal as much damage or soak up as much damage. What can I do? And I'm saying this the way it is. That player's feelings are valid. And we have to find the reason why they are feeling this way. Or we have to find the reason why their character might be dealing like on average 10 less damage per round than them, to figure that out and why that is, and then maybe change something about it. And this is where it's at. You're not supposed to complain. You're supposed to find a solution. Because if you're feeling like all the other player characters are currently mismatched with this one character, look at why. Does this character have a magic item that is just overpowered with their character's build? Because first of all, good job that you gave that player a magic item that fits them so well that they're probably super excited to use it every single time. But second of all, then you should also do it for all the other characters. So again, that fairness, that balance is there. And I'm not talking about actual mathematical balance, but just about a pure balance of feelings. It sounds so wrong to say that, but it is where it's at.
That's one reason why in one of my groups that I try to my players that is creating magic items for them that level up basically with them, that not necessarily are just, they are just made for them and specifically for their character, the way they want to play this specific combination of class, race, stats, and their attitude and essence, as we talked about in a different episode, because that's part of your roleplay. But everyone has a unique thing that only their magic item can do in combination with the character. And therefore, every single character in that campaign is completely busted, combat-wise. Completely busted. Our barbarian at level 6 dealt on average of a damage per round from this barbarian to a vampire was 40.
That's a lot.
That's a fucking lot at level 6. But everyone had weird, cool magic item shit that they could do that still made them feel valuable. Not because of the damage they did, but because of the things that they enabled.
Yeah.
They could accomplish, that they found out, or whatever, right? Because they their magic item that I built complemented their build or furthered their idea of the character that they wanted to have. And therefore, no one feels like more OP than the others, but just on the same level, but in different aspects. And I think that they are all not necessarily optimized for combat builds, but in this, on a pure mathematical level, that I think there's still room to improve theoretically, if you completely boil it down to each and every single number, which I don't want to, because no one else at my table wants to.
It's also just so freaking pointless to analyze TTRPGs, even though, they're mathematical games on this mathematical level.
Exactly. But from a pure math standpoint, I think there is still room for improvement in quotation marks. But everyone feels fucking powerful. They want to feel fucking powerful, and they will be. Then everything is right, correct? Then everything is good. And every player shines in a specific situation more than the others, only through their abilities and the way that they created their character. And I don't think that this thing of min-maxing is a problem or any part, because we all agreed on the same thing. We communicated and made a lot of fun times with this. In this campaign that I talked about, we just played the 20th session of that campaign. It started over 1.5 years ago, and we had a lot of fun, and will still have a lot of fun in the coming, hopefully more than 40, 50 sessions, something along those lines. Yeah, it's just an amazing way if you all agree to the same thing. This is one of the important things. Talk about the things that you want to do, and then decide on a common ground, and then go from there. But the talking about it first is really important, because if you say there will be one combat every 15 sessions, and one character builds a character without knowing that first, that is purely combat and completely focused on that. Not having the ability to play out your character is also feels also very shitty. So talk about what you as a group, as a table want to do, and then go from that.
I think you mentioned two very important things that I want to just reiterate. The one thing that you just said is the talking about it, because obviously talk about it before you ever get to the problem to prevent the problem from happening. But if the problem has happened and you're valid in your feelings that there is some kind of power mismatch that could destroy or is destroying fun, the best thing to do as a dungeon master, and this is when people ask these questions online. I have one of my players that has min-maxed their character and is completely overpowered in combat. What can I do to either knock them down a peg or upgrade the other two? The most advice I read is talk to the players about it. Ask the other players, first of all, if they're feeling the same way, because they might not be feeling the same way. And they're having fun and have never thought about it, so maybe it isn't even a problem for them. Or they have an idea. I am a wizard and I have a lot of utility spells. Could you give me a magic item that increases my utility? You have a solution right there given to you by the player that you want to make a solution for. It cannot get better than that, period. And the second thing is, just adjacent to that, you said, right, the barbarian might be dealing a lot of damage in combat, and the other ones are doing other things. And that's exactly where it's at as well. The easiest thing for us as people playing the game is we see the numbers, and the numbers are big, and that means dopamine release in brain. And the barbarian has bigger numbers than everyone else, and that means bigger dopamine release, and that means, maybe the others aren't having as much fun because they don't have the big numbers. But you're completely devaluing what, for example, the fighter did by aggroing the vampire and, using a guarding attack to make sure that the vampire cannot hit the sorcerer that is preparing, a ritual spell to banish this vampire off the earth for good or whatever. And even though the barbarian might be dealing with damage, making sure that the vampire is not overpowering the party, they cannot kill it. But the sorcerer has to with their ritual. And in that instance, everyone had impact and everyone had good impact. And you cannot measure that just by the numbers they did. You have to measure a lot more in combat. And that's why I think you don't need to stress yourself too much with if one character is a little bit more overpowered than the others. If there's a clear mismatch, that's something different, and you should address it and find a way to deal with it. But if one character, if you really want to calculate, does like 4 more damage per round than the others, it's 4 damage. It's not gonna be that big of a difference, and the others are not necessarily caring for it. Yeah, they just want to play their fun character.
Yeah, and if the 4 damage make the difference in one fight, whoop-de-fucking do. Because it's one fucking fight.
Even if they do in more than just one fight. In the group, the mentality probably isn't, this player is taking all the kills, but it's more like, cool, the barbarian is doing so much damage. Yeah,
or
and they're killing everything.
We didn't fucking die, or whatever. Yeah. Thank God the orphanage was saved, or something along those lines, right? Yeah.
There's one other thing I need to talk about, because I think that the problem characters are actually not the min-maxed ones. But the balanced ones. I'm not talking about characters that are balanced to as normally defined, but I've seen a few players of mine and otherwise what they've been doing is making sure that every stat is evenly distributed, that their character in every stat has a 12, for example. They have a +1 to everything. That is a problem. Not because they're overpowered, but because they're clearly underpowered.
Yeah.
They are clearly underpowered in every aspect. And that is, again, not a problem that you need to address by hating the player, but by talking to the player and saying, hey, you know that is not gonna yield effective for most things because they might not know. They might think that it's best to have a +1 in every roll, right? That's a 5% chance to succeed on every single roll, more than when you have only the roll. You get a +5% to every chance you do, but you only get a +5%. The others have a +25. And then you should talk to the player. I mean, you've chosen that build. Is there a specific reason? Or like, I don't want you to realize this later on, but if everyone in the group has basically all of the 6 stats higher than you, you're not going to be necessarily that effective. And that is a problem. Without getting too much into that of the balanced characters, I would just say as advice out there for other people, min-max your characters, please, because they make for better characters than characters that have a 12 in every stat. Those characters are the bland, boring ones, not the ones that have a +5 to strength and dexterity and the other stats in like an 8. They might be combat machine fighters, but
throw 1 charm at them. Done.
Even out of combat, they're still a fun character because I'm the strong fighter. I can best every foe. But I get scared when
chess with me.
But I get scared when I talk to the barmaid Uwu.
Yeah.
That is more fun than, I'm kind of like semi-good at everything, but not good at anything. I'm a jack of all trades, but master of literally nothing. Again, could be a fun concept for once, but I just think that concept is bland and boring as fuck when you play for it for a longer time. I would warn my players to do that because you're a wizard. You want that 5 in intelligence because you want to be smart. Please put your +5 into intelligence. If you want to put it in wisdom, I won't stop you, but please refrain from making sure that your charisma, wisdom, intelligence all have the same values. That's boring. Don't. Yeah. I want more fun in-game. Doesn't matter if it's with the numbers or the roleplay, but the bland, boring character is not going to provide any of it. So that's where the problem actually lies. But that's something nobody talks about because those characters don't get created that often with that. Min-maxing ain't bad. Combat ain't bad. But there's still a problem with it that you can address very easily by making a few changes to stuff, be it combat, be it roleplay, be it the game itself, and talking to your players. And then that problem is just a null and void problem because you have such an easy way of dealing with it. It's very easy to deal with a min-max, with a power level mismatch in your group. It's so fucking easy. You just have to do it.
Exactly. And with that, I don't have anything else.
Yeah, same.
So thank you all for listening and hear you on the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of DoubleDM. It appears you liked this one. What we had to say and our advice helped you. Why not show us how we helped you in a rating, or even write a review detailing us how we helped? You can do this on the platform that you are listening on right now. It's just a few clicks, doesn't take long, and helps us out. It gets us out there and our advice into more ears of more people. Thanks again for listening and joining us on this amazing journey. Have a great day and hear you on the next one. Bye bye.